Jinho Kim stood in the grand chamber and tried to keep his hands from shaking. The room was enormous, with walls that seemed to stretch forever into darkness. 12 massive chairs formed a circle around him, and in each chair sat a creature from a different world. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some looked like they were made of living crystal. These were the leaders of the Galactic Council, and they were about to decide Earth's future. For 3 years, Jinho had worked for this moment. He had traveled to dozens of worlds. He had learned their languages and followed their rules. He had smiled when they insulted humans and stayed quiet when they called Earth primitive. All of it was to prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars. Beside him stood Hana Park, wearing her military uniform with all her medals. She was a soldier, not a diplomat, and Jinho could see the anger in her eyes. She did not like bowing to these aliens, but she stayed silent because Earth needed this. The High Arbiter finally spoke. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "We have reviewed humanity's application for membership in the Galactic Council. We have studied your history, your technology, and your culture." Jinho felt hope rise in his chest. They had passed every test. They had shared their discoveries. They had offered friendship to every species they met. "The Council has reached a decision," the High Arbiter continued. "Humanity is denied membership. You are classified as a quarantine species. All human vessels must leave Council space immediately. Any human ship that crosses the outer markers will be destroyed. Trade is forbidden. Communication is ended. This decision is final." The words hit Jinho like a physical blow. He heard Hana gasp beside him. "What?" he managed to say. "Why? We've done everything you asked." "You are too dangerous," another council member said. Her skin was blue and she had 4 arms. "Your species developed faster than light travel in only 150 years. You turned peaceful technology into weapons in decades. Your history is filled with wars. You cannot be trusted." "But we came in peace," Jinho argued. "We want to learn from you, to trade with you, to be your friends." "The decision is final," the High Arbiter repeated. "You have 30 days to remove all human presence from Council space. Guards, escort them out." Armored soldiers appeared from the shadows. They were not rough, but they made it clear that Jinho and Hana had no choice. As they walked toward the exit, Jinho looked back at the council members. They sat in their chairs like kings, certain of their power. Outside the chamber, Hana finally spoke. Her voice was tight with rage. 3 years. 3 years of begging and following their rules. And they spit in our faces. "They're afraid of us," Jinho said quietly. He was starting to understand. The Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They moved slowly and carefully. Humanity had jumped from the first airplane to faster-than-light travel in just 300 years. The Council looked at humans and saw something they could not control. "What do we do now?" Hana asked. Jinho watched through the station's massive windows as Council ships patrolled the space lanes. Those ships were huge and powerful, with weapons that could destroy planets. The Council thought they were safe behind their guns and their laws. "We go home," Jinho said. "We tell Earth what happened. And then we prepare. Prepare for what? They called us dangerous. They said we couldn't be trusted because we're too good at war." Jinho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Maybe we should show them they were right. The journey back to Earth took 2 weeks. Jinho spent the time writing his report. He chose every word carefully. When their ship finally entered Earth's orbit, he sent the message to every government, every military base, every news station on the planet. The response was immediate. Some people wanted to keep trying for peace. Others wanted revenge. But everyone agreed on one thing. Earth would not accept this judgment. They would not crawl back home and hide in their own solar system like children sent to bed without dinner. Premier Minji Song called an emergency meeting of Earth's government. Jinho and Hana were summoned to speak. Jinho told them everything. When he finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then Premier Minji spoke. "They exiled us because they think we're dangerous. They're afraid of what we might become." She looked around at the assembled leaders. "Let's prove their fears were justified. Not by attacking them, not yet, but by becoming so strong that they'll regret the day they turned us away." The vote was unanimous. Project Phoenix was born that night. Earth would build not just a fleet, but an empire. Jinho left the meeting with a new title, Fleet Admiral. Hana was promoted to Grand General. They had 10 years to transform Earth from a single planet into a power that could challenge the entire Galactic Council. As Jinho looked up at the stars that night, he made a silent promise. The council had made a terrible mistake. They would learn that lesson in Fire and Steel. The sun rose over Seoul, but Jinho had not slept. He stood in the command center, looking at the holographic display that floated in the air before him. It showed the entire solar system, from Mercury to Neptune, and every plan his team had made overnight. "It's insane," said Doyen Lee, the chief engineer. He was young, barely 30, but he was the smartest person Jinho had ever met. "You want to turn Mercury into a factory?" "The whole planet?" "Not a factory," Jinho corrected. "A forge. We'll use the sun's energy to power everything. Mercury is close enough to the sun to collect more power than we could ever use." Doyen stared at the numbers. "It would work," he admitted. "But it would take years." "We have 10 years, Hana said. She had joined them an hour ago, still wearing yesterday's uniform. 10 years to build a fleet that can stand against the council. We don't have time to be careful." The plan was simple in concept but massive in scale. Mercury would become a solar forge, collecting energy from the sun and using it to build ships. Mars would be terraformed faster than anyone thought possible, turned into a training ground for soldiers. The asteroid belt would be mined completely. Every rock turned into metal for ships and weapons. Jupiter's moons would house research facilities where scientists could work on weapons too dangerous to test near Earth. "What about the shipyards?" asked Captain Yuna Choi. She commanded Earth's flagship, the largest warship humanity had ever built. But it was tiny compared to council ships. "Where do we build the actual fleet?" "Everywhere," Jinho said. He expanded the hologram to show detailed plans. "We build shipyards in orbit around Earth, Mars, and Jupiter. We build them in the asteroid belt. We build them anywhere we can anchor them. Every yard will work day and night. In 10 years, I want 500 warships. 500. The number seemed impossible. Earth currently had 23 military ships. Building 500 meant building 50 per year, more than 4 per month. It meant training thousands of new workers, developing new construction methods, and pushing every limit they had. "We'll need a different kind of ship," Doyen said. He was already thinking, his hands moving through the hologram. "Council ships are big but slow. They rely on heavy armor and powerful shields. What if we built something different?" "What do you have in mind?" Jinho asked. "Speed and firepower. Make our ships fast enough to dodge their weapons. Hit them with railguns that fire projectiles at 30% of light speed. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not solid metal moving that fast." Hana leaned forward. "Can you build that?" "Give me 2 years and unlimited resources, and I'll give you a ship that can kill a council dreadnought." "You have 1 year," Jinho said. "And yes, you have unlimited resources." The work began immediately. Millions of people volunteered for Project Phoenix. Some worked in the new shipyards. Others joined the military. Scientists who had been studying peaceful things suddenly found themselves designing weapons. It was not easy, and many people did not like it. But they understood the choice. Build a fleet or wait for the council to decide humanity was not just dangerous, but needed to be eliminated. Sumin Han was one of the scientists who changed careers. She had been studying black holes and exotic physics. Now she worked on the Ghost Drive, a way to move through space without being detected. "If we can hide our ships," she explained to Jinho during a meeting, "we can strike before they know we're there." "How long until it works?" Jinho asked. 3 years? Maybe 4. You have 2. Sumin did not argue. She just nodded and went back to work. Years passed. Mercury was transformed into a nightmare landscape of machines and forges. Automated systems stripped the planet's surface and fed the material into massive factories. The heat was so intense that everything had to be done by robots. Mars began to change too. Atmosphere processors worked day and night, slowly making the air breathable. Oceans started to form. Within 5 years, people could walk on Mars without pressure suits. The asteroid belt disappeared. Every rock was hauled away to be melted down and reformed. Where there had been millions of asteroids, there were now hundreds of floating shipyards, each one building warships. The first of Doyen's new ships rolled out of construction in just 13 months. He called them Hammer-class battlecruisers. They were half the size of Council dreadnoughts, but twice as fast. Their railguns could punch through any armor the Council had. Jinho stood on the bridge of the first completed Hammer and smiled. "Beautiful," he said. "She's fast, she's deadly, and she's invisible to most Council sensors," Doyen said proudly. "And we have 49 more under construction." By year 8, Earth had 300 warships. By year 9, 400. The training bases on Mars were full of soldiers from every nation on Earth. They learned to fight in zero gravity, to shoot weapons that could cut through starship hulls, to pilot fighters that could outmaneuver anything the Council had. But Jinho knew numbers were not enough. The Council had thousands of ships. Even if Earth built 500 of the best warships in the galaxy, they would be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "We need allies," he told Premier Minji during a strategy meeting. "Who?" Minji asked. "The Council controls everything. Everyone we've met is either a Council member or under Council protection." "Not everyone," Hana said. She pulled up intelligence reports. "Our scouts have been exploring beyond the outer markers. There are species out there that the Council doesn't talk about, species that were conquered, enslaved, or exiled like us." Jinho studied the reports. One caught his eye. The Koresh, a reptilian species that had been enslaved 200 years ago. Their worlds were rich in rare minerals, so the Council had taken them. The Koresh were forced to mine their own planets while Council overseers took everything they produced. "Can we reach them?" Jinho asked. "It's outside Council space," Yuna said. "It would take 3 months to get there. Then we leave tomorrow," Jinho decided. "Take 10 ships. Make contact. If they want freedom, we'll give it to them." The plan was no longer just about building a fleet. It was about building something bigger, an alliance, a coalition of the exiled and oppressed, and one day an empire. Captain Yuna Choi watched the screens on her ship's bridge as they approached the Koresh mining colony. What she saw made her sick. Hundreds of reptilian creatures worked on the surface of a dead moon, breaking rocks with primitive tools while alien overseers floated above them in patrol ships. The overseers carried weapons, and Yuna saw them use those weapons on workers who moved too slowly. "How long has this been happening?" she asked. 200 years, answered Jiho Kang, the intelligence officer assigned to her fleet. The Koresh had a civilization once. Cities, art, technology. The Council took it all away when they found the rare minerals on Koresh worlds. "And the Council claims to be civilized," Yuna said. The anger in her voice was clear. "Can we communicate with them?" "I've been trying. The Koresh don't have communication technology anymore. The Council took it away to keep them from organizing. But I managed to hack into the Overseer network. I can send a message through their system. Do it. Tell them help is coming." Yuna's fleet of 10 ships moved into position. The Overseer vessels were small, barely armed. They were designed to intimidate slaves, not fight warships. When Yuna's ships appeared on their sensors, the Overseers tried to flee. It was too late. Railgun rounds caught them before they could activate their faster-than-light drives. In minutes, every Overseer ship was destroyed. Yuna sent a shuttle down to the surface. She went herself along with Jiho and a squad of soldiers. The Koresh workers stopped mining when the shuttle landed. They stared at the humans with golden eyes full of fear and confusion. One Koresh, larger than the others, stepped forward. "What are you?" he asked in broken galactic common. "New Overseers?" "No," Yuna said. She removed her helmet so they could see her face. "We're humans. We're from Earth. The Council exiled us, and now we're here to offer you a choice. Join us and be free, or stay slaves. It's your decision." The large Koresh stared at her. Then he began to laugh. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "Free? There is no free. The Council will send more Overseers. They will punish us for this. They will kill hundreds of us as an example. Then don't be here when they come," Yuna said. "We have ships. We can take you somewhere safe. We can give you weapons and teach you to fight. The Council thinks they own you. Let's prove them wrong." The Koresh looked at his fellow workers. They whispered among themselves in their own language. Finally, he turned back to Yuna. "If you lie, if this is a trick, we will die anyway, so we will trust you." That was how it began. Yuna's fleet evacuated 12,000 Koresh workers from 3 mining colonies. They destroyed the mining equipment and the Overseer stations. When they left, they took everything valuable with them. The Council would find only empty colonies and a message. "These people are free now. If you want them back, come and take them." The Koresh were the first but not the last. Over the next 5 years, Yuna's fleet traveled beyond the outer markers, finding other species that the Council had crushed. Each time she offered the same choice, freedom or slavery. Most chose freedom. The Thalen were an aquatic species with natural talent for engineering. The Council had defeated them in war and taken all their technology. When Yuna freed them, they immediately offered to help build ships. Their knowledge of fluid dynamics made them perfect for designing better engines and weapons systems. The Vorin were insectoid warriors who had fought the Council to a standstill for 50 years before finally losing. The Council had scattered them across a dozen prison worlds. When Yuna's Marines broke into those prisons and offered the Vorin weapons, they joined the fight without hesitation. They were natural soldiers, fast and fearless. The Menos were gaseous beings who existed as clouds of intelligent particles. The Council had forced them into containment vessels, using them as living batteries to power their stations. Freed Menos proved invaluable for infiltration and sabotage. They could slip through any barrier and disable systems from the inside. Admiral Jinho watched the reports come in from Yuna's expeditions. Each freed species brought new capabilities. More importantly, they brought hope. Word spread through the underground networks that the Council could not completely control. Species that had been conquered whispered about the humans who fought the Council and won. But liberation was not enough. The freed species needed somewhere to go, something to believe in. They needed a government. Jinho called a meeting on Kareth Prime, the Koresh homeworld that had been reclaimed from Council control. Representatives from all the freed species gathered in a hastily constructed hall. Humans, Koresh, Thalen, Vorin, Menos, and half a dozen others sat together. "We're all here because the Council hurt us," Jinho said. "They exiled humanity. They enslaved the Koresh. They stole technology from the Thalen and imprisoned the Vorin. They treated the Menos as tools instead of people. Every one of us has a reason to hate the Council." Heads nodded around the room. The hatred for the Council was the one thing they all shared. "But hate isn't enough to build something lasting," Jinho continued. "We need to be more than just enemies of the Council. We need to be something better than them. I propose we form a new government. We'll call it the Terran Commonwealth. Not an empire where one species rules all others. A commonwealth where every species has a voice." "With Earth in charge?" one of the Koresh leaders asked. The suspicion in his voice was clear. "With Earth as first among equals," Jinho admitted. "We have the largest fleet and the most resources. But we'll share everything. Technology, knowledge, protection. We won't demand tribute or slaves. We'll trade as partners." The debate lasted for hours. Some species worried that humans would become new overlords. Others argued that Earth had earned their trust through action. Finally, they voted. The Terran Commonwealth was born with Earth as its capital and Jinho as its first Admiral Consul. The Council noticed. How could they not? Dozens of their mining colonies had been destroyed. Prison worlds had been emptied. Species that were supposed to be controlled or eliminated were now building ships and armies. The High Arbiter sent a message to Earth. It was short and threatening. "Return what you have stolen, or face the consequences." Jinho's response was shorter. "Come and take it." The Council sent warnings. They sent ultimatums. They sent threatening broadcasts that played on every channel. Jinho ignored them all. He was too busy building the Commonwealth into something that could not be destroyed. By year 12 after the exile, the Commonwealth controlled 40 star systems. The fleet had grown to 800 warships with help from the Thalen engineers. The Vorin had trained 50,000 human and alien soldiers. The Menos had infiltrated Council networks, providing intelligence on fleet movements and defense systems. Narration, who had been Jinho's assistant during the original Council hearing, now led the diplomatic corps. She worked to bring more species into the Commonwealth peacefully. But everyone knew that peace could not last. The Council would eventually respond to this challenge with force. The question was not if war would come. The question was when. The Council's patience finally broke in the 13th year after Earth's exile. They assembled an expeditionary force of 200 warships and sent them to crush what they called the Human Rebellion. The fleet was commanded by Admiral Tharkin, a veteran warrior from a species that had served the Council for over 1,000 years. Tharkin was confident. He had read the intelligence reports on human ships. They were smaller than Council vessels. Humanity had only been spacefaring for a few centuries. Their technology was primitive. This would be a quick victory, a reminder to the galaxy that the Council's power was absolute. The Council fleet entered what humans had started calling the Free Territories. Their destination was the Vale Nebula, where Commonwealth scouts had reported seeing the main human fleet. Tharkin smiled. The humans were making this easy. What Tharkin did not know was that Jiho's intelligence network had tracked his fleet since it left Council space. Every move, every communication, every supply stop had been monitored. Admiral Yuna and Admiral Jinho knew exactly when and where the Council fleet would arrive. The Battle of the Veil began at dawn, though dawn meant nothing in space. Tharkin's fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, ready to overwhelm the enemy with superior numbers and firepower. His sensors detected 40 human ships in the nebula, sitting still as if waiting to surrender. "Easy pickings," Tharkin said. "All ships advance and destroy them." The Council fleet moved forward. That was when Suman's ghost drive proved its worth. Another 100 Commonwealth ships materialized from the nebula's clouds, appearing on sensors where there had been nothing moments before. They had been there all along, invisible to Council sensors. Tharkin barely had time to register the threat before the first railgun rounds hit his fleet. The projectiles traveled at 30% of light speed. At that velocity, they carried more kinetic energy than most energy weapons. When they hit Council shields, the shields shattered. When they hit armor, the armor exploded. 3 Council dreadnoughts died in the first minute of battle. "Return fire," Tharkin shouted. "All weapons, fire at will." Council ships unleashed their energy weapons. Bright beams of focused power lanced through space, targeting the human vessels. But Doyen's Hammer-class battlecruisers were fast. They twisted and dodged, their smaller size making them harder to hit. When the energy beams did connect, the Commonwealth ships' shields held. Doyen had designed them specifically to counter Council energy weapons. More Commonwealth ships emerged from the nebula. These were not human vessels, but ships crewed by Vorin, Koresh, and Thalon. The Vorin fighters swarmed like angry insects, targeting the Council ships' engines and weapon systems. The Koresh heavy cruisers hammered away with weapons designed from stolen Council technology. The Thalon ships moved through space with impossible grace, their superior engines allowing them to outmaneuver anything the Council had. Tharkin watched his formation fall apart. This was not the easy victory he had expected. These were not primitive humans stumbling through space combat. They fought with precision and coordination, using tactics he had never seen before. "Pull back," he ordered. "Reform at the outer markers." But the Commonwealth had planned for that too. As Council ships turned to flee, they found their escape routes blocked. More Commonwealth vessels appeared, cutting off their retreat. Tharkin realized with growing horror that he had flown his fleet into a trap. The battle became a slaughter. Commonwealth ships worked in teams with fast attack craft disabling enemy shields, while heavy cruisers delivered killing blows. Mano-saboteurs had infiltrated some Council ships through tiny gaps in the hull, and those ships suddenly went dark as their systems were disabled from within. Yuna commanded the Commonwealth fleet from the bridge of her flagship. She watched the tactical display and made decisions quickly. "3rd Squadron, hit that cluster of cruisers." 5th Squadron, cut off the dreadnoughts trying to escape to the north. "Foreign fighters, screen our capital ships from their bomber attack." The orders flowed smoothly. The Commonwealth fleet moved like a single organism, each part supporting the others. This was what 12 years of preparation had built. Not just ships and weapons, but a military force that worked together perfectly. Then Suman's newest weapon was revealed. She had been working on it for 3 years in secret, showing it to only Jinho and a few others. She called it the Cascade Torpedo. It created an artificial gravity well that lasted for just 3 seconds, but those 3 seconds were enough. When the torpedo detonated near a cluster of Council ships, the sudden gravity pulled them together. Hulls crushed against each other. Ships that had been fighting one moment were twisted wreckage the next. 3 Council cruisers died before they understood what was happening. Tharkin's flagship was among the few still fighting. He had pulled his remaining ships into a defensive sphere, using their combined firepower to hold off the Commonwealth attack. But he knew it was hopeless. He had come with 200 ships. Less than 50 were still combat capable. Yuna's face appeared on his communication screen. "Council Admiral Tharkin," she said. "Surrender now and your remaining crews will live. Continue fighting and you'll all die. Choose quickly." Tharkin looked at his tactical officer. The younger warrior shook his head. They had no chance of winning. No chance of escape. The only question was whether they died fighting or died surrendering. "I will not surrender to primitives," Tharkin spat. "The Council will avenge us. Your species will be extinct within a year." Yuna's expression did not change. So be it, all ships eliminate the remaining hostiles. It took another 2 hours. The Council defensive sphere held longer than Una expected, but the outcome was never in doubt. When the last Council ship's shields failed and railgun rounds tore through its hull, the Battle of the Veil was over. 157 Council ships destroyed. 43 had managed to escape by running in different directions, sacrificing their comrades to buy time. The Commonwealth had lost 29 vessels, most of them older ships from the first generation of construction. But Una was not satisfied with just winning. She wanted the galaxy to know. She ordered every ship to record the battle. Then she broadcast the footage on every channel, every frequency, every communication network they could access. The message was simple. The Council is not invincible. They came with 200 ships to destroy us. We killed most of them and sent the rest running. Any species that wants freedom, contact us. Any Council member that wants peace, respect our borders. This is your only warning. The broadcast reached billions of beings across the galaxy. On Council worlds, leaders gathered in emergency meetings. On enslaved worlds, workers whispered in excitement. On independent worlds, governments debated whether to seek Commonwealth protection or stay neutral. The High Arbiter watched the battle footage in silence. When it ended, he turned to his council. Humanity has stopped being a problem. They are now a threat. We must eliminate them before this spreads. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would be classified as a level 5 threat, a rating usually reserved for dangers that could destroy entire civilizations. The Council would assemble its full military might and crush the Terran Commonwealth completely. But the Council moved slowly. They needed time to gather their forces, time to plan, time to coordinate between their member species. Time was the one thing they should not have given humanity, because every day they waited, the Commonwealth grew stronger. 3 years after the Battle of the Veil, the Council finally moved. They had spent those years building an armada unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. 2,000 warships from 6 different member species, all converging on Commonwealth space. The Council's message was clear. The human rebellion would end, but the Council had made a mistake. They thought humanity had 500 ships. They thought the Commonwealth was a desperate alliance of weak species. They were wrong. Jinho stood in the command center on Earth and studied the incoming fleet movements. 2,000 ships, he said to Hana, who stood beside him. They really want us dead. Can we win? Hana asked. We have to. Jinho pulled up the strategic display. We've been preparing for this. Every simulation, every war game, every plan has been leading to this moment. The Council thinks we have 500 ships. We have 3,000, Hana smiled. They're going to be very surprised. The Council had also failed to realize how much the Commonwealth had grown. 40 star systems had become 70. New shipyards on a dozen worlds were producing 50 vessels per month. The population of soldiers had swelled to 800,000, trained by Voran warriors and human veterans. Every Commonwealth world had defense platforms, orbital weapons, and ground forces ready to fight. The war began at Threshold Station, the Commonwealth's primary shipyard. It was massive, capable of building 10 capital ships simultaneously. The Council sent 400 vessels to destroy it, expecting to cripple Commonwealth production. They were met by General Hana herself, commanding the defense from Threshold's central platform. She had 300 ships in the immediate area and another 200 in reserve. The Council fleet attacked in waves, trying to overwhelm the defenses with numbers. For 90 days, the battle raged. Council ships battered the station's shields. Commonwealth defenders fought them off, using the station's own weapons to supplement the fleet. Hana rotated her ships in and out of combat, keeping fresh vessels on the front line while damaged ships retreated for repairs. She slept 4 hours per day and spent the rest on the bridge making decisions. The Council committed more ships, 600, 700. They were desperate to destroy the station. But reinforcements kept arriving for the Commonwealth. Ships from Earth, from Kareth, from Thalan space. By the time the Council finally gave up and retreated, they had lost 400 ships. Hana's forces had lost 80. While the Council was focused on Threshold, Commander Seojin Park executed Operation Scalpel. Jiho's intelligence network had mapped every Council supply route, every fuel depot, every ammunition stockpile. Seojin led a force of fast raiders, striking 50 targets simultaneously. Council convoys exploded in deep space. Depots burned. Supply ships heading to the front lines were captured or destroyed. Within a week, the Council's logistics network was in chaos. Ships at the front started running low on fuel and ammunition. The Council had numbers, but numbers meant nothing if the ships could not fight. The real turning point came at Varthion, a Council founder world. It was ancient and proud, with a civilization that had existed for 10,000 years. It was also built on the backs of slaves from a dozen conquered species. Admiral Yuna led the assault with 600 ships. The Council had 800 defending the planet. On paper, the Council should have won. But Yuna had learned from Hana's defensive threshold. She did not try to fight all 800 at once. Instead, she divided her fleet into mobile strike groups that hit different parts of the defense grid. While Council forces scrambled to respond to attacks on the northern hemisphere, Yuna's Marines dropped on the southern hemisphere. They did not come alone. Jiho had spent months smuggling weapons to Varthion slave populations. When the Marines landed, 10 million slaves rose in rebellion. The planet descended into chaos. Council garrison forces found themselves fighting battles on the surface, while their fleet struggled against Yuna's ships in orbit. Within 3 days, the slave rebellion had taken control of half the planet. Within a week, the Council fleet was forced to retreat or be trapped. Varthion became the first Council founder world to join the Commonwealth. The symbolic victory was enormous. The Council's claim to absolute power was shattered, but the Council was not finished. They assembled their grand fleet, 1,200 ships including their flagship, the Eternal Judgment. It was the largest warship ever built, 5 kilometers long, armed with weapons that could crack moons. The High Arbiter himself commanded the fleet. They would crush humanity once and for all. The fleets met at Coreward Reach, a strategic system that controlled access to the Commonwealth's core worlds. Jinho commanded from the TCS Indomitable, humanity's newest battle cruiser. He had spent weeks studying Council tactics. They relied on formation fighting, using their superior numbers to create overlapping fields of fire that nothing could survive. Jinho had a different approach. As the Council fleet advanced in their traditional formation, Commonwealth ships scattered. They broke into small groups, moving independently, refusing to present a single target. Council commanders were confused. This was not how space battles were supposed to work. Fleets were supposed to face each other and trade fire until one side broke. The Commonwealth did not play by those rules. Fast attack craft, many piloted by Voran warriors, swarmed the Council formation from every angle. They targeted communication arrays and sensor systems, blinding the Council ships and preventing them from coordinating. Heavy cruisers, built with stolen Council technology and improved by Thalen engineers, hammered away at the larger vessels. Menos infiltrators disabled key systems at critical moments. The Eternal Judgment was the Council's pride, but Suman had designed a weapon specifically to kill it. The Helios cannon took 10 years to develop and was so large it required 3 ships working together to power it. When it fired, it created a beam of focused energy hotter than the core of a star. The beam lasted only 5 seconds, but that was enough. The Eternal Judgment's shields held for 2 seconds. Then they failed. The beam carved through the hull like a knife through paper, cutting the massive ship in half. The High Arbiter died without ever understanding what had hit him. The destruction of the Eternal Judgment broke the Council's will. Their formation collapsed. Ships began to retreat individually, abandoning their comrades. Jinho let them go. He had proven his point. By the end of the year, the Council had lost half its military. 3 member species, seeing which way the war was going, defected to the Commonwealth. The Council's authority was crumbling. Species that had followed Council law for thousands of years were questioning whether the Council deserved to rule. Jinho received peace overtures from multiple Council members. They wanted to negotiate, but Jinho remembered standing in that chamber 13 years ago, listening to the Council condemn humanity. He remembered the arrogance in their voices, the certainty that they were right. No peace, he told his advisors. We finish this, Premier Minji disagreed. We've won. The Council is beaten. Further war is just revenge. It's not revenge, Hana argued. It's making sure they can never do this again. Not to us, not to anyone. As long as the Council exists, there'll be a threat. The debate split the Commonwealth leadership. Some wanted peace, others wanted total victory. Jinho made the final decision. They would give the Council one chance to surrender. If they refused, The Commonwealth would finish what the Council had started. The surrender offer was simple and direct. Jinho broadcasted across every communication channel in Council space. Dissolve your government. Free all enslaved species, except Commonwealth law. You have 30 days to decide. The Council's response came in 24 hours. It was a single word: never. Jinho had expected nothing else. He gave the order, and the final offensive began. The Commonwealth fleet was now the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. 3,000 warships supported by millions of soldiers and planetary defense forces. But this was not about conquest. Jinho made that clear in every system they entered. We do not come to conquer, the message said. We come to liberate. Join us willingly and you will be welcomed as equals. Resist and we will move on. But know that the Council's protection is a lie. They cannot save you anymore. World after world surrendered without a fight. Some Council member species had been unwilling participants all along, forced to contribute ships and soldiers to maintain Council power. When given a choice, they abandoned the Council immediately. Others surrendered after watching what happened to those who resisted. The few worlds that fought back learned what Commonwealth forces could do. Orbital bombardment was precise and devastating. Landing forces were overwhelming. But Jinho never ordered the destruction of civilian populations. Soldiers died, governments fell, but the people survived. That made all the difference. Species that might have fought to the death instead negotiated peaceful transitions. Not everyone in the Commonwealth was happy with this approach. Some Koresh wanted revenge for 200 years of slavery. Some Voron wanted to burn Council worlds in retaliation for their imprisonment. Hana had to maintain strict discipline to prevent atrocities. We are not like them, she told her officers. We do not enslave. We do not massacre. We fight soldiers and destroy governments. But we do not harm civilians. Anyone who breaks this rule will face military justice. There were incidents. A Koresh unit executed Council officials who had run mining operations. A human squadron bombed a civilian factory that had been making weapons. In each case, Hana held courts martial. Punishments were severe. The message was clear. The Commonwealth would be better than the Council. The siege of Centralis took 3 months. Centralis was not a planet but a massive space station, the heart of Council government. It was protected by the last of the Council fleet, 300 ships that had nowhere left to retreat. The High Arbiter was dead, but his successor Velthar commanded the defense. He had been there 14 years ago when the Council exiled humanity. Now he would make his last stand. Yuna commanded the assault fleet. She had learned patience over the years. Instead of rushing in, she laid siege. Commonwealth ships surrounded Centralis completely. Nothing entered or left. Food shipments stopped. Fuel supplies ran dry. The defenders grew desperate. Velthar sent messages begging for relief from remaining Council forces. None came. The Council no longer existed as a functioning government. Its member species had surrendered or defected. The few loyal forces left were scattered across the galaxy, hiding and hoping to survive. After 2 months, Velthar tried to negotiate. He offered to surrender if the Council leadership was allowed to go into exile, to live out their lives peacefully on a distant world. Yuna refused. You will stand trial for your crimes. All of you. The species you enslaved deserve justice. Velthar's response was defiant. We ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. We brought order to chaos. We will never bow to primitives like you. The siege continued. Inside Centralis, conditions became desperate. The station had been designed to house 1 million beings comfortably. It now held 3 million, packed in after fleeing from Commonwealth advances. Food ran out. Water was rationed. People started dying from starvation and disease. Finally, Velthar's own people turned on him. A group of junior officers, seeing no point in continuing a hopeless fight, arrested the Council leadership and offered unconditional surrender. They opened the docking bays and allowed Commonwealth Marines to board. Jinho himself went to Centralis for the formal surrender. He walked through the corridors with Hana at his side, seeing the desperation in the eyes of the station's population. These people had believed the Council would protect them forever. Now they were learning the truth. Empires fall, and those who built their lives on others' suffering eventually face judgment. He met Velthar in the Council chamber, the same room where humanity had been exiled. The alien was in chains, his forearms bound behind his back. He looked at Jinho with hatred. You prove we were right about your species, Velthar said. You are dangerous. You are violent. You destroyed our civilization. Jinho studied him for a long moment. No, we proved you were wrong. You called us dangerous because you feared we would not submit. You were right to fear, but not for the reasons you thought. We did not come to destroy civilization. We came to free it from you, Velthar spat at Jinho's feet. Guards moved to restrain him, but Jinho waved them back. It does not matter, Velthar said. You will become what we were. Power corrupts. In 100 years and 1,000, your commonwealth will be just another empire exploiting the weak. Maybe, Jinho admitted, but we'll try to do better. And if we fail, someone will rise up against us just like we rose against you. That's how it should be. Power should never be permanent. Velthar was taken away to await trial. Jinho stood in the council chamber and looked at the 12 empty chairs. The council was finished. Over the next year, the transition was completed. 300 star systems were reorganized under Commonwealth law. Former council species were offered membership as equals. Most accepted. Some chose independence, and the Commonwealth let them go. Freedom meant the right to choose your own path. The trials began. Council leaders who had ordered atrocities were convicted and imprisoned. Some were executed for crimes against sentient beings. The trials were public and fair, with defense attorneys and rules of evidence. Jinho insisted on this. We are not seeking revenge, he said. We are seeking justice. Earth became the official capital of the Terran Commonwealth. Doyen led the construction of the Ring, a massive orbital station that would serve as the new seat of government. It was designed to hold representatives from every Commonwealth species, a parliament where all voices would be heard. The Commonwealth Charter was written and ratified. It guaranteed rights for all sentient beings. No slavery, no forced labor, no genocide, freedom of movement and trade, self-determination for all member worlds, and limits on central authority. To prevent the Commonwealth from becoming what the Council had been, Jinho refused the title of Emperor. Instead, a representative government formed, with a parliament elected by member worlds. Earth held the most seats due to its population and military power, but not a majority. Laws required consensus among multiple species. Suman shared her technology freely with allied scientists. The Ghost Drive, the Cascade Torpedo, advanced ship design, all became available to Commonwealth researchers. Some humans worried about giving away their advantages. Jinho disagreed. We won because we were better, he said. If we stay better by keeping secrets, we are no different from the Council. We share everything, and we trust our allies to use it wisely. By year 15 after Exiled, the galaxy was transformed. The Council that had ruled for 10,000 years was gone. In its place stood the Terran Commonwealth, an alliance of free species working together. It was not perfect. Arguments broke out. Some species clashed over territory or resources. But conflicts were resolved through negotiation and law, not through enslavement and war. Humanity had done what the Council said was impossible. They had turned exile into opportunity and defeat into victory. Earth, once rejected and alone, now stood at the heart of a new galactic civilization. 5 years after the war ended, Jinho retired from military service. He was only 53 years old, but he felt ancient. The weight of command, the decisions that led to millions of deaths, the responsibility for an entire civilization. All of it had aged him beyond his years. He returned to Seoul and bought a small apartment overlooking the Han River. Most days, he sat on his balcony and watched the ships come and go from Earth's orbital stations. The sky was always busy now. Vessels from dozens of species arrived daily, bringing trade goods and visitors. Earth had become the center of galactic civilization. Hana visited him regularly. She had not retired. As Grand General, she commanded the Commonwealth's military forces, keeping the peace across 300 star systems. She worried about Jinho. He seemed diminished somehow, as if victory had taken something essential from him. You should be proud, she told him during one visit. Look what we built. The Council enslaved species for 10,000 years. We freed them in less than 2 decades. At what cost? Jinho asked. He poured tea for both of them, a small ritual they had maintained since the early days of Project Phoenix. Millions died. Entire fleets were destroyed. Worlds were bombarded. And for what? To replace one empire with another? It's not an empire, Hana protested. The Commonwealth is different. Every species has representation. We share power. For now, Jinho said. But power corrupts. Velthar was right about that, even if he was wrong about everything else. In 100 years, maybe less, the Commonwealth will face the same problems the Council faced. Someone will want more power. Someone will decide that controlling others is easier than cooperating with them. Hana had no answer for that. She changed the subject, telling him about new developments in the Commonwealth military. Vorin warriors were training human soldiers in advanced tactics. Thalen engineers had improved the ghost drive, making ships even harder to detect. The Menos had volunteered to explore regions of space that were too dangerous for physical beings. But their conversation was interrupted by urgent news. A new threat had emerged: the Remnant, a group of former Council loyalists who refused to accept defeat. They had gathered in the Galactic Fringe and were launching terrorist attacks on Commonwealth worlds. Ships had been destroyed. Colonies had been bombed. Hundreds were dead. Hana was recalled to duty immediately. Yuna, now Commonwealth Fleet Commander, took personal charge of hunting the Remnant. Jiho's intelligence network infiltrated their organization, tracing supply lines and identifying leaders. It took 2 years of careful work, but the Remnant was systematically dismantled. The final confrontation came on a frozen moon in uncharted space. The Remnant's last cell was captured by Vorin Special Forces. Their leader, a former Council intelligence officer named Rathan, was brought to Earth for trial. Yuna asked Jinho to attend the hearing. He had not been involved in the Remnant hunt, but Yuna felt he should be there. "You started this," she said. "You should see how it ends," Jinho agreed. He stood in the courtroom as Rathan was brought in chains before the judge. The alien looked at Jinho with burning hatred. "Your empire will fall," Rathan said. "All empires fall. You will become tyrants just like the Council. Your children will be the oppressors, and someone will rise to destroy them." The words echoed what Velthar had said 5 years earlier. Jinho felt a chill. Was it true? Would the Commonwealth become corrupt? Would future generations forget why they had fought? That night, Jinho could not sleep. He thought about Rathan's words. He thought about all the people who had died to build the Commonwealth. He thought about whether it was all worth it. In the morning, he called Premier Minji. "We need to add something to the Commonwealth Charter," he said. Minji listened as Jinho explained his idea. The charter already limited government power and guaranteed rights, but it needed something more: automatic mechanisms to prevent corruption, term limits for all officials, regular reviews of military authority, sunset clauses that force the government to re-justify its powers every generation. "You want to build in our own destruction," Minji said. "No, I want to build in our own renewal." The Council lasted 10,000 years because no one could challenge them. The Commonwealth should not last that long, not in its current form. Every generation should have the chance to rebuild it, to make it better. The proposal went to the Parliament. It sparked fierce debate. Some representatives argued that weakening central authority would make the Commonwealth vulnerable. Others supported Jinho's vision of a government that could evolve and change. The vote was close, but it passed. The Commonwealth Charter was amended. Future generations would have the power to reshape their government without resorting to war. 10 years after exile, Jinho stood in the same chamber where the Council had condemned humanity. But the chamber was different now. The 12 imposing chairs were gone, replaced by a circular parliament where representatives from 60 species sat as equals. Humans, Koresh, Thalen, Vorin, Menos, and dozens more all working together to govern the Commonwealth. It was not perfect. Arguments broke out regularly. Some species felt they deserved more representation. Trade disputes caused friction. Military deployments were controversial. But conflicts were resolved through debate and compromise, not through weapons and threats. Ambassador Nari approached Jinho with news that made him smile. A signal had been detected from beyond the galactic rim, from a region of space that had never been explored. It was a peaceful greeting from an unknown species asking for contact. "What should we tell them?" Nari asked. Jinho thought about the Council's first response to humanity: exile and threats. He thought about how different things might have been if the Council had chosen cooperation instead of fear. "Tell them the galaxy has new management," Jinho said. "Tell them all species are welcome. Tell them we believe in freedom and cooperation. And tell them that if they ever need help, the Commonwealth will stand with them." Nari smiled. The Council would never have said that. That's the point, Jinho replied. The message was sent. Weeks later, a response arrived. The unknown species was grateful and eager to meet. First contact was scheduled for the following year. The Commonwealth would greet these strangers not as threats to be quarantined, but as potential friends. Jinho returned to his apartment in Seoul. He stood on his balcony and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, former council species were rebuilding their civilizations in freedom. Somewhere out there, children from a dozen different worlds were growing up without knowing what slavery felt like. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was becoming a better place. The cost had been terrible. Millions had died. Fleets had burned. Worlds had suffered. Jinho would carry that guilt for the rest of his life. But he also knew that sometimes the cost of freedom was paid in blood. The question was whether future generations would remember that cost and choose to preserve what had been won. On Earth's moon, a monument had been erected. It was visible from the surface, a tall structure of white stone that caught the sunlight. On it were carved the names of every soldier, human and alien, who had died in the Liberation War. Millions of names, too many to read in a lifetime. At the top of the monument was an inscription that Jinho had written himself. They called us dangerous. They feared our potential. They were right to fear, not because we would destroy, but because we would free. This is our promise. Never again will any species be exiled for daring to reach the stars. Below that, a second inscription had been added after the war. Let those who come after us remember, freedom must be earned, defended and renewed by every generation. The price is high, but the alternative is chains. Jinho read those words every time he visited the monument. They reminded him why the fight had been necessary. They reminded him that the Commonwealth was not an ending, but a beginning. The Council had ruled for 10,000 years through fear and force. They had tried to exile humanity, to make an example of a species that dared to grow too fast and reach too far. But humanity had turned that exile into opportunity. They had built not just a fleet, but an alliance, not just an army, but a civilization, not just an empire, but a commonwealth of free peoples. The galaxy would never forget the species that the Council cast out, because that species had returned and changed everything. Earth, once deemed too dangerous to join galactic civilization, now stood as its heart and its conscience. As Jinho watched the sunset from his balcony, he felt something he had not felt in years: peace. The work was not finished. It would never be finished. But they had built something worth protecting, worth improving, worth passing on to future generations. The Council had feared what humans would become. They had been right to fear, but they had feared the wrong thing. Humans had not become conquerors or tyrants. They had become liberators. And that made all the difference.